Orana from Tahiti, and welcome to Filled with His Love. You know, I get eager every 6 months for General Conference, and now it's upon us again. Lolly and I will be watching it here in Tahiti, and you'll be watching it wherever you are. I hope you will be watching it. I'm eager to hear the messages from those we sustain as prophets, seers, and revelators. I'm also eager to hear from all the other general authorities and general officers who will be speaking to us this weekend. I love reading the scriptures, the records of the prophets who have lived throughout the ages. But there's something miraculous about listening to and studying the words of those who are alive today, right now, living through the same challenges that we face in our daily lives. My anticipation of conference has caused me to think of the ways that I've been blessed by living prophets. I could name a lot, but in this episode I will mention 5. First, they not only teach us how to live in a confusing world, they also teach us how to face the most challenging moments of mortality. Those we sustain as prophets, seers, and revelators serve until they die. So we watch them as they approach the end, and we watch them as they lose their loved ones. President Nelson has openly expressed how hard it was to lose his wife, Dancel, and also his daughter. Elders Ballard, Scott, Packer, and others, and most recently, President Holland, have also lost their wives. We see them express the unspeakable sorrow at their loss, and we also see them forge ahead, knowing that they will be with their eternal companion again. President Hinckley's sorrow at the loss of his wife, Marjorie, was particularly memorable for me because I grew up next to the Hinckley's. Sister Hinckley was kind of like a second mother to me as I grew up. So in the teachings of President Hinckley, in that book, this is what he said, quote, "As I held her hand and saw mortal life drain from her fingers, I confess I was overcome. Before I married her, she had been the girl of my dreams. She was my dear companion for more than 2/3 of a century, my equal before the Lord, really my superior. And now, in my old age, she has again become the girl of my dreams. To lose one's much-loved partner, with whom one has long walked through sunshine and shadow, is absolutely devastating. There is a consuming loneliness which increases in intensity." President Hinckley did not try to minimize or hide the pain of losing his wife. He openly expressed his profound grief. He let us see into his soul. He gave us license to mourn our own losses. His openness blesses me. Prophets are real people. They have emotions just as we do. They experience sadness as well as joy. What a blessing for me. Living prophets show me how to face the most difficult moments of mortality. Number 2, prophets, seers, and revelators show their imperfections and help me accept my own imperfections. In his memorable talk, Like a Broken Vessel, Elder Holland admitted that he had experienced depression himself. Quote, this is Elder Holland, "At one point in our married life, when financial fears collided with staggering fatigue, I took a psychic blow that was as unanticipated as it was real. With the grace of God and the love of my family, I kept functioning and kept working. But even after all these years, I continue to feel a deep sympathy for others more chronically or more deeply afflicted with such gloom than I was. In any case, we have all taken courage from those who, in the words of the prophet Joseph, searched and contemplated the darkest abyss, and persevered through it, not the least of whom were Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, and Elder George Albert Smith, the latter being one of the most gentle and Christ-like men of our dispensation, who battled recurring depression for some years before later becoming the universally beloved 8th prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Number 3, living prophets can laugh and make others laugh even when life is tough. Elder Worthland being steadied at the podium by President Nelson is an image that will never leave me. Do you remember this? There was Elder Worthland in the last weeks, months, I don't know, of his life. And he could not stand steady at the podium. So Elder Nelson at that time, now President Nelson, stood behind him and steadied him so he could give his talk. His final talk was called Come What May and Love It. He told stories in that talk that would make anybody laugh. He was so enjoyable, such an engaging man, even in the last moments of his life. Come What May and Love It has become a classic talk at conference. So it's like whatever happens, we can still love the outcome. It's an amazing and wonderful message. Okay, number 4, they love one another in the Savior's way. The conversation between Presidents Eyring and Oakes during President Nelson's birthday celebration showed more than anything else the love they have for one another in that first presidency. The first presidency, along with the Quorum of the 12, show us how to find unity and oneness. They never move on a decision until they are at one with one another and with the Lord. They are living examples of the kind of unity that the Savior prayed for in John 17, just before he gave his life for us. So what a blessing for us to be able to watch that and to see that up close, the way that they interact with each other, the kindness that they show to one another. Whether it's the way that they walk off the stage at conference as they gather their spouse or whatever it is, the way they say hello to the audience. They love the members of the church, but they also love one another, and that unity comes through loud and clear. It's a blessing to all of us, certainly a blessing to me. Number 5, they show us how to live the law of consecration and how to endure to the end. Elder Maxwell was once speaking at the podium after losing nearly all of his hair as a result of chemotherapy for the leukemia he was being treated for. He was speaking at BYU. I remember the evening very well. There was a symposium on C.S. Lewis, and he was, of course, the keynote speaker at this symposium. And so there was Elder Maxwell undergoing chemotherapy for his own leukemia at the time. And he said at the end of his talk, he said, "Now, brothers and sisters, I wish that I could stay and greet you after this presentation, but I won't be able to do that because I have committed myself to go and give blessings to a number of people here in Utah Valley who are suffering from cancer as I am." So there he was, thinking of others, even at a time when he himself was suffering. That's consecration. And another example that comes to my mind is one time I was asked to give a presentation to the 12, and I needed to practice. And so the brother that was over the technology for the room where the 12 meet, he said, "Well, you'll need to get here quite early because Elder Hales always arrives 30 minutes before the meeting begins." And he did arrive 30 minutes early. There he was in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank. He told us one day that every time he entered his doctor's office, the doctor said, "Well, if it isn't Lazarus." He said, "I've treated lots of people with your disease, and no one has lasted as long as you have. It's like you've risen from the dead." That's the story Elder Hales used to tell about. He had a very serious lung disease, and he lasted much longer than that doctor anticipated. That's enduring. That's consecration. My final example is one that we all remember, perhaps. Not that we experienced it, most of us, but those of us who are old enough remember hearing him actually say this. This is Elder Bruce R. McConkie. He was also, like Elder Maxwell, dying of cancer, and he gave his final talk at the podium in General Conference a very short time before he passed away. He knew he was going to pass away, and these are the words he spoke. "I am one of his witnesses, and in a coming day I shall feel the nail marks in his hands and in his feet, and shall wet his feet with my tears. But I shall not know any better then than I know now that he is God's almighty Son, that he is our Savior and Redeemer, and that salvation comes in and through his atoning blood and in no other way." End quote. Such memorable words. When Elder McConkie said these words so many years ago, I'm sure that many thought his sure witness was possible because he had been called as an apostle. But we can all have that witness, the same witness he had. We can all know, as he knew, that Jesus is the Christ, the Savior of the world, that he died for each one of us, and that we, like him, can one day be resurrected and live with him and our Father in heaven again. Living prophets, seers, and revelators. They have blessed my life since I was born, and they will bless me in new ways this coming weekend. I wish you the most inspiring, instructive, edifying conference ever. I hope you enjoy every message, and we will see you next time.